My wife's dream hunt was a bison. So in 2023, that's what her Christmas present was, a bison hunt. Follow along as we go from Utah all the way out to South Dakota for this awesome bison hunt.
Well, thanks for watching the video this far. And we're going to do a little questionnaire. We had a lot of people reaching out with questions. I posted on my Instagram asking people for questions that they had for Kass and for this hunt. So, excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold. Wrote down some of these questions. So one of them was kind of unique, or a couple of them were pretty unique, but have people been surprised that you are a woman who hunts?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Are you surprised that I hunt? Well, maybe a little bit. When we were dating, that was a very weird thing, right? That I was a hunting woman and I had killed more animals than you had.
Yeah, I mean, fun fact, Kass killed an elk before I did. And before we were married, she'd shot a big 3x4 mule deer. So, like, on our wedding registry, there was a bunch of camping stuff, and people were like, Cam, you need to not put camping stuff on your wedding registry. And I was like, that's not me. That's her. That's why I'm marrying her, So people who know you aren't surprised, but there are people that are surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. We'll go to church or other functions, and they're like, your wife hunts? Like, she shot a buffalo. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I go with him when he hunts.
Yeah.
It's great.
So, another one that was kind of unique is, did anyone from the guide to the process or anything in between, did anyone treat you differently because you're a woman or because you're a female?
I don't know if the guide does this for everyone. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But he was just like so worried about me making a shot and missing. Like, that's what I remember is like, he was like, I have my gun here just in case. And he's like ready to shoot if I miss, right? But maybe that's just like standard practice.
Yeah, I don't know. I think part of it might be because aside from guiding buffalo in South Dakota and deer and whatnot out there, he also guides moose and brown bear up in Alaska. So it might just be like a transition from Alaska that, hey, when his clients shoot an Alaska brown bear, he also shoots just in case. He doesn't wait, So I think that might have just been force of habit type of thing. But an interesting individual. But we had a good experience, So with this being on private land versus like here in Utah, we hunt. I don't think we've ever hunted private land here in Utah.
I have.
Aside from a pheasant farm, right? Like, that's the only thing. So hunting public ground here in Utah to then hunting private land in South Dakota, how was the experience different? Like, did it feel different? Like, what was different about it?
The terrain was different for sure because I'd never been to South Dakota, so I have only hunted in the Rocky Mountains where you're hiking super steep all the time, and this was very much rolling hills and landscape that way, right?
Yeah.
And then the other part that's different was my experience hunting deer and elk in Utah has been that it's in the general season, so there's a lot of hunters as well, so it feels like that's half of the battle with hunting is you're hunting against other hunters. But we didn't have any other hunter competition, so that was very different for me.
Gotcha. So, no competition, no pumpkin patch, not a bunch of other people in orange. I mean, we didn't have to wear orange. That was the cool part. And then, the terrain was different, and there just wasn't other people that we were competing against. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Was there anything else that was different?
I mean, yeah, it was a ranch, but it wasn't like a pen hunt, right? At least in my opinion. You can share yours after, but it didn't feel like we showed up and it was like, shoot this one. It was like, okay, we're on this vast ranch. I know there's like a ton of bison here. They like to hang out in these different spots. They'll be down in this draw. There's water down here. It looks super flat when you're just driving by, but then you'll drive like this little back road on a farm, and then there's like a dip, and there's like all this terrain that you had no idea existed when you're driving on the road.
Yeah.
So we drove around a little bit, but yeah, it didn't feel like a pen hunt to me. But did it feel different? Like, did it feel like a pen hunt, or did it feel like hunting, even though it was on private ground?
It felt, well, I mean, it was different because I feel like hunting, half of it is like finding them, right? So we'll hike miles and miles and still not see anything, and that's like part of our hunting experience. But so that was probably the most different for me, but I don't know if that makes it a pen hunt or not, where we just, maybe that's more of just a guided hunt versus this of like, hey, they knew where we were supposed to go.
It's like, hey, we paid someone, they knew where they were, they had an idea of where they were, and we ended up finding them, right? So someone who wants to do this bison hunt, would you recommend it? Like if someone was like, hey, that's also my dream animal. Like, should I go there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it was great. It was great for what we did.
Yeah. The biggest question that I've gotten of them all is like, what's the meat taste like? You know?
It's hard to describe. Because I feel like it's sweeter.
In a way, yeah.
In a way, from like comparing it to like just ground beef. So it's sweeter. I feel like it's so much more lean. Like, you know how normally, even if you get a lean, like
lean ground beef normally,
you still have a bunch of fat, but this you don't. So much more lean. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say it's like maybe a little sweeter, especially when we first got it. Maybe because we've had it for over a year, I'm like accustomed to it, and I'm not picking up on the sweetness anymore because that's all we use.
Maybe we need to do a side by side of like, this is ground beef and this is bison.
Yeah, maybe. What's your favorite recipe, or what's your favorite thing to make with it?
I really like to make the meatballs with it.
Those are like my favorite. Those are so good.
But I just substitute it for any ground beef in a recipe, and I feel like it tastes good.
Yeah. Do you remember what the shot distance was?
Only because you told me that it was less than 200 yards. I thought it was between 200 and 300. I was like, it's got to be somewhere in there.
Yeah, no, it was running at like 150. So, which that's a crack shot. You had a hard shot at 150. That's awesome.
If I missed, that would be really embarrassing.
Right. So did we outsource any of the processing or the skinning?
How would we do that? I'm just trying to imagine now, like thinking back on it, how would we bring back a whole buffalo to Utah? Like that would be kind of crazy. Just
coolers and coolers and coolers and coolers.
But even
and boned in, and then get it here, and then hang it up and process it in the garage. And
even then, like it didn't even fit all in the coolers that you had in the back of your truck.
And that was processed, no bones, right? So, do you remember what the hanging weight was? It was like,
I want to say it was like between like 1,100, 1,200 pounds.
Yeah, so this thing was old. It was pretty big. You probably saw in the video, like there were some pictures of where like the ribs had been smashed from like these two bulls fighting and whatnot, and which it was just crazy. But like these things are huge. So hanging weight was like 1,100, 1,200 pounds. I'd have to find the receipt from the butcher, but it was nice because she flew back home and I waited an extra day for them to finish up processing it, had it frozen. I drove it home. I've got 2 over 100 quart size coolers, and then I had another 45 quart cooler and another like 45 quart cooler, and it still didn't all fit in there. So like, thankfully it was December. It was single digits driving through Wyoming and South Dakota all the way back to Utah, and so it stayed frozen in the bed of the truck. But like, it was a ton of meat, and I, like you said, I can't imagine trying to bring that all home unprocessed. It was like a 18 hour drive. Like it was a long drive. So I'm grateful that there was a connection there that processed the bison for us, had it frozen a day later, and it was good. And then fun fact, your taxidermist called the other day and was like, hey, I'm ordering the mannequin for it. Do you want a straight, left, or right? You know, so he's still on track to get that to us this December, so that'll be nice to have.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, it'll be good. But that leads me to my next question. So what made the American bison or American buffalo, like what made that your dream hunt?
Growing up, we had a buffalo in our house, right? We had a mount above the fireplace. My mom had shot a buffalo when she was 18, and I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And you know, everyone would come into our house and be like, oh, like, to my dad, like, oh, you nice shot or whatever, and it'd be like, actually it was my wife, you know. So I just thought that was really cool. So I kind of like that, and I like that it's just like such a massive animal. Like it's so huge, and I don't know, I've just always really liked them. I think they're cool to look at. I like pictures of buffalo. I like all things.
Yeah. So out of all of the things that happened on this hunt, like what shocked you or what was like surprising to you?
I still don't know if I know what a buffalo sounds like.
Okay.
Do you know what a buffalo sounds like?
I remember hearing them. I was like, that's a weird sound. It's kind of like a low grunt, not snort. I was just like, am I hearing things? But yeah.
Yeah, I was like, what is that? Yeah. So that was surprising.
Okay. It was surprising for me how easily they like disappeared. So like we were driving around, we found them bedded in these trees like over a mile away, and I'm like, okay, awesome. We did a big circle, you know, got downwind of them so that like the wind, our scent wasn't blowing to them, and they disappeared. Like we got to their bed and we're like, where'd they go?
Yeah.
You know, and this terrain just looks so flat. But in reality, it's doing this, and it's got all these little cracks and crevices that they're just dropping down in and sneaking away, and you have no idea. So it was surprising to me how big they are, yet how easily they disappear and how quiet they can be at the same time. You know, similar to elk, you're like this giant forest horse walking around, and somehow it's quieter than I am in the woods. Like, what?
Yeah, that was really interesting.
So, when you think back on your experience, like what were some of the highlights? You know, like when you think back or someone asks you like, hey, how was that hunt? Like what are some of the like your favorite memories or like key points that kind of pop up?
I really enjoyed, and maybe it's just like the adrenaline that goes into it, right? Of like pulling the trigger, seeing the kill, like going up on the animal, and just be like, holy cow, like it's even bigger now that I'm right next to you. So I really like that part of just like seeing the huge animal. I think that's a highlight for me. And then also, it was cool to go see the processing of like dropping it off and being like, okay, here's everything. We took it to the taxidermist, we took it to the processor. So I thought that was cool as well.
Gotcha. Kind of got to see the whole process from start to finish. Yeah. One of my favorite parts was one, watching you do it and like how excited it was, but then as well, like it was a sweet shot, like heart shot, like did like a mule kick, ran over, and he would have died with that one shot. Granted, the guide had us put another one in him as he like lifted his head when he was already on the ground.
Yeah.
But I was just like so proud that like, hey, here was your dream hunt, you know, several states away, went and made it happen, and you know, one shot wonder basically. Like you made a great shot, and just seeing like your smile on your face, like when you were standing next to the animal, you're holding his head up, and just like, hey, I did it. Like it was so cool. So when people ask me, I'm just like, hey, I'm proud of my wife. Like that was awesome. So
that was really cool.
Yeah. So if you were to kind of recap your hunt experience, like in 30 seconds, like how would you recap it for everybody?
Just like the whole hunt.
Like, hey, start to finish, like, hey, I flew from Utah to, I flew back to Utah, like 30 seconds, ready, set, go.
I flew there. We got right down to business. We went in to the truck, drove out, found them where they were at, scouted them out, stalked in on them, hiked around for quite a bit, and yeah, then they came walking over the ridge. We're like, oh, here it is. And from there, it was just super smooth of like, okay, take them down, take them out.
Yeah.
Bring it back on.
There you go.
And you were a trooper for driving all through the middle of nowhere, Wyoming, in the dead of winter to bring it back.
I'm just grateful there were no winter storms. You know, like, as for as cold as it was sunny. There wasn't snow everywhere. It was interesting. You know, when we booked the hunt, we were fully prepared for like negative wind chill in South Dakota, and it was a mild winter. There wasn't really snow on the ground, and it was like, oh, I'm counting my blessings right now, because we were like, okay, we got gloves, we got like insulated boots, we're ready to go, we're ready to do this thing, and then it was like, oh, like yeah, it's 20 degrees, but it's not negative 20 degrees.
True.
So it was good. Well, guys, if you made it this far in the video, thanks for sticking around. If there's any other questions, drop them in the comments below, and I'll have Kass answer them. So in the meantime, stay tuned for more adventures from Cam Ventures. Thanks.